Prong, Broken Peace. So a couple things stand out with this song. One is Tommy Victor's use of harmonics and the wah pedal. Now, it's not a novel thing for a musician to use a wah pedal, but it was a novel thing for me to use it. So it took me figuring out how to set it up and get it working on a line 6. And, you know, it seemed to do the trick, and it was educational for me. And one of the things that stood out, actually I'm going to stop there and I'll save it for discussing the solo. So looking at riff 1, from the beginning to 0 seconds, that's going to be predominantly wah. And the second riff at 8 seconds to 32 seconds. Now, this is something that may be relevant to talk about, is as I was playing it early on, oftentimes I'm like, I transcribed it wrong. Maybe it wasn't a slide, maybe it wasn't a hammer-on, maybe they hit the note. And really what it was is I was sloppy, and I needed to build some muscle memory on it. And the slides, the hammer-ons, I think were correct, and it just sounded off because I was sloppy. So if it starts sounding off to you, make sure you're not being sloppy, and then if it's still off, then fix it as you must. The riff at 33 seconds and 38 seconds, this could easily be a discouraging riff because natural harmonics are not an easy thing to consistently trigger. And it's the core of this song, is these natural harmonics that he does. So the encouragement I give you is the more you play it, the less you'll miss. Kind of like that movie Patriot, aim small, miss small. Well, keep practicing and you'll more consistently be able to hit the hammer-ons. I'm going to guess in my playthrough, I probably missed a couple, and in the mix, the original songs may have covered my missing. Just what happens. So let's take a look at page 2. So page 2 starts off with more of the harmonic riffs. And if we look at the bottom of page 2 at the 1 minute and 9 second, that's where the core riff of the song comes from, and the reason I want to learn it. I had this pop up on a playlist, and I'm like, geez, he's crushing it, and this is a riff that's crushing it. So about this riff is there's not a whole lot of tabs out there or playthroughs that were available, and the ones that were, they were really only helpful in getting me to the general location to work from. And I think the problem is that when people approach it, they approach it with their muscle memory and their style, and that's not Tommy Victor's. And so when I started working on this, it was very difficult because he was hitting notes in a pattern that I wouldn't hit notes. And so when you're predisposed to do a certain thing, it's kind of hard to hear it and comprehend it when it's not happening as you're predisposed. So this is him. This is his uniqueness. And it may be easier for you because hopefully I got the transcription right. But if it's not, know that that's where you got to pay your dues, and you got to spend some time in it because you're learning someone else's playing style. And so let's take a look at page 3. So it's an extension of this riff, and so I'm looking at the last riff that's tabbed out. Oh yeah, okay. That's a simple one, and it's just the open D that this is tuned to. And since I just said the word tuning, I'll get into that one. I'm not going to go over each of the tunings a little later like I've done in some of the other tutorials, because drop D is pretty common. So just think tune to E and then drop your low string to D, and think of A as in A440 in your pitch. So let's take a look at tab sheet 4. So we're starting off with the wah, one of the main reasons for the wah in this song. And as you'll notice, it grows. Like there'll be 3 times that the wah is utilized in the rhythm section, not counting the solo. And to be honest with you, it took me a long time to remember the changes. And that's always a frustrating part because you might have the riff down, but they switch up the patterns of where the riffs come in. I'm kind of noticing that with these better songwriters is how they do that. And it just makes it tougher just to remember the changes, but the more you play the song, you'll remember the changes. And then I was, if you look at riff 3 minutes, at the 3 minute 40-second mark, it's an octave. And it's just kind of an interesting observation. I'm like, oh, because it's drop D, I didn't have to do any power chords. Well, this was close to a power chord, but it's interesting to get through a metal song without really kind of doing your traditional power chord. The other thing I was thinking about that once I started thinking about drop D is how he really advanced it. I mean, this song's probably 20 years old. I can't remember when it came out, probably maybe older. But what predates it is a lot of the simple metal drop D songs. And the most advanced back then was probably The Thing That Should Not Be. But it was still, and I haven't played that song in many years, but thinking back, it was still kind of a basic song. It was like a lot of the metal musicians hadn't figured out what to do with drop D beyond the first, second, and third frets and some of that basic barring of them. But Tommy Victor on this one, it was really kind of pushed the boundaries, or there was a gap in there where other people helped build it in. And it's kind of a leap in complexity from the early drop D metal songs. So maybe I'll end up picking some kind of in the in-between period of like The Thing That Should Not Be in this one, and it'll make more sense to me. But it was an interesting thing to notice that jump in playing styles and creativity that happened in that time frame. So let's take a look now at tab sheet 5, and kind of more of the same, nothing really to talk about there. And let's look at tab sheet 6. It's kind of an outro. All right, so that's going to take us to the solo. And I think the solo is worthy of some additional discussion. And so I'll just kind of flow through into that additional discussion. If you look at the first part, think of the solo in two halves. In the first half, I think I got pretty close to getting it note for note. And a lot of the flavor of it comes from the wah. And so, take the time to learn it. I had to, and it was a good experience for me. Where things really started to change, and I don't know, maybe it's just growth for me, is at the 4 minute and 51-second mark. He did a run, and it was a fast run, and I was like, I don't know if I could do that, because I've never demanded my left hand to match my right hand in terms of each note that's getting played by both. And so I'm working through the song, trying to transcribe it, and it's just really tough. And I'm telling myself, you know what? I've got to structure the second half of the solo to something that's attainable to me. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind, like structuring it to something that's attainable to your playing style. Meaning, or for an example, let's say they do a run with a pattern of 4. Obviously we're not going to be hitting each 4 of our fingers are going to be on that run. Maybe they could, depending on how you stretch it. But it was like, that would be tough for me. But I could pull off runs with a triplet, or at least I think I might be able to, so that's going to be more obtainable. So circling around to that is, I started looking at his videos where he's playing it live, and he does something different each time. There's like this core melody in there that gets played in the first half, and he kind of sticks with that when he goes live, but each time when he's playing, it's something different. And I'm like, oh, great. It's one of those situations where even the artist, they've got a hook and they know how they're going to start and how they're going to end, and they just kind of ad-lib something in there. But I did find one live solo that he did that was similar to the album. And you know what? I wasn't able to pull it off. So what I'm telling you on the second half of this is it's educational to actually attempt a solo and go, oh, this is going to be one of the ones where the artists go, yeah, I don't play the same thing every time. And what made it attainable for me is I attacked it as triplets on the run, and I worked it to what I was more predisposed to doing. So that's kind of the food for thought for you. If you're going to attempt a solo, if that's not something you usually do and it's challenging, figure out what's most obtainable for you and see if you can get close to it. Especially if it's one where they ad-lib it all the time. Oh, I'm also noticing on the part of the solo on the first bar at the 4-minute and 51 second mark. I've got a bar that says on the 13th fret on the bottom 3 strings. Actually, that was kind of some variations that I was working on, and I didn't clean it up. I just ended up going with a bend on the 13th fret and accenting it with the wah pedal.